Coming at y'all today with this Mike Prysner, Katie Halper video. I'm gonna be watching it with you guys and kind of reacting to it. Like I said, I've seen it already, but reacting with you guys and breaking it down and all that such. Going off of 2 hours of sleep, guys. So I'm trying to keep my mind going. So bear with me. If I start saying stupid shit, just bear with me. But yeah. So off rip, I know I've been talking about her a lot, but it's important to point this stuff out because this is, we need a strong anti-war movement. And we don't need people like Marianne Williamson muddling the waters with this dumbass and to be completely honest and be real, this dumbass westernized, white woman feminism bullshit. That's not saying that feminism overall is bullshit, but the westernized white woman version of that shit is some bullshit because they don't actually they're it's very reactive. It's not proactive, it's reactive. And you saw that on clear display with the Afghanistan situation where you have Marianne Williamson, begging, basically begging for the United States to stay in Afghanistan to protect Afghan women. I'm worried about the millions of Afghan women. Why weren't you like talking about them being slaughtered by death squads or, Joe Biden bombing them? Joe Biden just bombed this fucking high school and a clinic. Like, huh? And now, like, I was reading through Pepe Escobar's article, and he was talking about the reason why the Taliban didn't outright just storm the place. They already had like sleeper cells inside of Kabul to make the transition easier because they didn't want to, have an all-out battle and risk civilian casualties. So it's like, you got Biden just going in bombing a fucking clinic in a high school. Like, this is America doesn't give a fuck about women, bro. And they were even talking about the puppet government didn't give a fuck about women at either. They were a tad less, more outrageous towards women than the fucking Taliban. But now the Taliban is being coached by Russia and China, and they're telling them, yo, calm down with that shit. And they're talking about allowing women to stay in the same, spaces they're in, but having to wear what are they called? Hijabs and everything like that. So now I'm not taking our word for it. Obviously, we're gonna have to see with time, what happened, what the fuck actually happens. But still, regardless, it's insane this notion that we should stay to protect Afghan women when we were bombing the fuck out of them and running death squads all through their villages. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this video because Mike Prysner breaks it down, beautifully in this segment. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get into this Katie Halper video because I feel like Mike Prysner just breaks it down perfectly. Now, I'd recommend. I was thinking about like reacting to the whole 1 hour, 45 minutes. She did a 45-minute interview with him, but I didn't. That's gonna be a little bit too long. It's gonna be literally probably be like almost 2 hours of me like talking and breaking it down. So I'd recommend just going to watch it yourself. Maybe I might do it during a live stream one day. I don't know, maybe, but yeah, let's go ahead and get into this joint.
The backwardness that exists there, first of all, is a construct of the United States. It's the legacy of US intervention in the country that even brought to prominence these reactionary forces, these right-wing forces. I mean,
so off rip, this is, very emblematic of what the United States does with its foreign policy and with its like covert actions and everything like that. Hang on one second. Sorry, guys. Yeah, but yeah. So I'm glad he's bringing that up because like I have arguments with I was just having an argument, well, not an argument, but a debate with my friend about it the other day, where his narrative was that, oh well, you can't necessarily 100% blame these countries' problems on the United States. They were shitholes before, they're going to be shitholes after. That and the third. When that's not necessarily true with most countries the United States invades, especially a country like Afghanistan. I was watching a Convo Couch video where they were talking about how like it was a tourist hub where you would have a lot of like hippies from all over the world coming through there because hashish was legal there and everything. So it had its problems, but not to the effect of what happened when the United States intervened, to force the Soviets out. and even prior to the Soviets invading as well. But overall, and these countries didn't have these problems, especially when you look at, and I'm going to be covering this in the Gray Zone video. They talked about this, how people complaining, they talk about the drug trade in Afghanistan. Well, prior to the United States going there, the drug trade wasn't like that. And when the Taliban was there, the heroin trade specifically. And when the Taliban was in charge, the drug production and trade went down, and it went back up when the United States invaded. And you saw the same thing when they when they went to Vietnam, and everywhere they go in Latin America, places like Colombia. This is what the United States does. They use the drugs to fund their dirty wars against countries they don't like. And most of them are usually communist, socialist countries. So Mike is hitting it, hitting the nail on the head right there, off rip.
Completely were born from the U.S. intervention in the 80s. So first off, the situation for women in Afghanistan is because of the United States in the first place. So the idea that it could be solved by continued U.S. intervention is just also kind of absurd.
And that's to Marianne Williamson, and the rest of the shit lives in the back of the classroom. And like I said, I love Marianne Williamson. I agree with her on a lot, definitely. But it's like these issues that are just, in my mind, super important that forge, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, you're not a leftist if you're this. Because look, I don't call myself a leftist. I agree with most, 95% of leftist ideology, but I don't like to identify myself as that, because it's like, it's always this debate, about, oh, you're not left of this, that. Who fucking cares, man? We're not out here to prove our ideology right. We're out here to make our lives and the people around us make their lives better. That's not this. This isn't about right, left ideology. I don't give a fuck about any of that. I care about making people's lives better. And, overall, the ideology isn't helping, the people of Afghanistan. Ideologies aren't helping them. What's going to help them is a strong anti-war movement. So you can't be arguing in favor of women's rights and shit like that when you had women massacred by the United States and its proxies in the region. Massacred. I covered that and their and Mike Prysner and Abby Martin's Afghanistan Death Squad video. They were running death squads, massacring people by the masses. So, we don't need that right now. We need a very strong anti-war movement right now. That's what we need, because they're pivoting to Asia. That's what they're doing right now. Look at what they're doing in fucking Myanmar. They're pivoting towards Asia.
Everyone talks about the Taliban's treatment of women, but the Afghan puppet government was also really bad towards women. And that was never really
I didn't know that till he said that, and I started looking into it, and they're fucking horrible too when it comes to women. like I said, the fucking Afghan forces, and more so the CIA proxies and the State Department proxies, like I said, we're going around running death squads. And honestly, and I'm not because look, it's going to take time to see what the Taliban's really going to be. But like I said, Pepe Escobar was talking about this, how China and Russia have been coaching the Taliban basically. So that's going to cause a lot of conflict in Afghanistan as well, because basically they're kind of choosing a side. They're joining all of these economic forums and all of these Eastern NATO-esque, type alliances and shit like that. So that's definitely going to cause conflict between them and the Western worlds, because China's trying to rebuild the new Silk Road. And as we all know, the old Silk Road, Afghanistan was a major part in that. So, and, with the whole Belt and Road Initiative. And that's why they're doing what they're doing in Myanmar as well. But yeah, man. So like, we don't know what their treatment, like they're talking about letting women having the current status, the current way of life they live. Basically, they just got to wear a hijab. Basically, they don't have to wear the burqas like they do in Saudi Arabia, but that the United States wanted them to be more like Saudi Arabia. That's why they ousted the Taliban to begin with, because they weren't allowing them to build pipelines, and they weren't giving them their resources, and allowing them to strip the whole country of their resources. That's why they ousted the fucking Taliban in the first place. And the precipice of invading was to go after Osama bin Laden. They offered to give him up because a lot of them didn't fuck with him to begin with. because he was part of the super radical portions they didn't fuck with, and he was bringing trouble onto them. And it's like this whole like something I forget. It starts with a P, but it's like a type of code they live by in Afghanistan. It's like their culture and shit like that. And Osama bin Laden was constantly violating that culture, but they couldn't just oust him and get rid of him because technically he was a guest. And it's a whole bunch of shit that Pepe goes into in that Gray Zone live stream. I'm gonna cover some of it when in that video, but it's crazy, man. So, like this whole precipice, again, just bottom line, the whole precipice of us staying there and making people's lives better is complete bullshit. And Mike Prysner did a good job.
Scandalous in the
calling
media
out.
that the Afghan puppet government had almost like the same policies towards women as the Taliban. Understand that the majority of civilian casualties for people who care about women in Afghanistan are from U.S. airstrikes and U.S. forces
And that went up under Trump. Like, I think they said Trump killed more civilians than Obama's troop surge, like boots on the ground troop surge. Like Trump killed more people dropping bombs. This motherfucker, he's an anti-imperialist, and he literally dropped the mother of all bombs. It's literally the most powerful bomb you can drop outside of a nuclear bomb. He just dropped it in Afghanistan.
U.S. proxy forces. So it's kind of disingenuous.
Anti-interventionist doesn't mean no boots in the ground. Anti-interventionist is not waging imperialist wars. You don't get to change the definition of things because you want to coddle the balls of your favorite politician.
To say, if we need to, the U.S. military can play some sort of role in protecting women in Afghanistan. When how many women have been killed by U.S. airstrikes over the last 20 years?
Exactly.
A lot. And the U.S. government doesn't care about that. I mean, they're happy to work with Saudi Arabia. They're happy to work with other countries that have horrible.
Israel bombs and shoots women and children on a daily basis. But Marianne Williamson is in favor of Israel. They have a right to exist.
Repressive policies towards women, and they will be happy to work with.
And this is honestly, and I know some people might be mad at me about this. I don't give a fuck. This is that westernized white Gloria Steinem, white woman type of feminism. That bullshit, that shit cooked up in a fucking in a fucking lab in the CIA. Not necessarily like not a lab, but cooked up in the offices of the CIA, pushing this bullshit culturally, man. And it's like, this is what that is, because, and this is that DSA-fication of the left. That's what the DSA was. The DSA, seemed conveniently always aligned, with the CIA and their talking points. You see it with AOC. She defers to party leadership when it comes to issues of imperialism. So that's what, unfortunately, has rotted Marianne Williamson's brain. Because if you really understood what was going on in Afghanistan, you would know we weren't there protecting women. They were still, leading, pretty shitty lives under our occupation, a legal occupation of their country.
With the Taliban, as long as the Taliban say, "Hey, we're ready to work with you," the U.S. government, Washington, will just forget about all.
The United States was hosting the Taliban over here, like our energy companies, all that type of shit. They were over here. We were welcoming them. But when they started cutting off, a lot of the natural resources that which we were there for to begin with, that's when they became crazy terrorists who brutalize women and all that bullshit. When literally the current president right now, the sitting president Joe Biden, has a credible rape allegation against him. And
the criticisms they have of the Taliban's treatment of women. So I think it'll be, and just one thing I'll say about the conduct of U.S. forces in Afghanistan. There is a expose by The Intercept. It was covered on like Democracy Now, like pretty much, I think the Washington Post did a story on it also. But the CIA, the Special Activities Division, the CIA soldiers, like ground troops, did a couple operations where they went to religious schools in Afghanistan. They rounded up, and these are children in the women's schools. They rounded up these children. Some of them were as young as 8 years old, 9 years old. They took them all into one room together, and then they executed all.
So here in America, if we heard of the Taliban doing that, and in their own country, much less another country, and God forbid a westernized country, Fox News will be screaming, "Oh, Sharia law! They're executing people!" So like that, we call that terrorism. Why are we not calling that when it's the United States doing it? Why is it, we're doing it probably in the name of Jesus, but more so in the name of like the almighty dollar. That's really what we're doing it for. But that's called terrorism. Why is it not terrorism when the United States does it? We're the terrorist of, in the world. The world sees us as the terrorist. We're the evil empire. Okay. We're the empire in Star Wars. Joe Biden is the current Emperor Palpatine right now. Right down to the wrinkles, except like, Palpatine was actually like, he could formulate sentences, even though they sounded dumb, like, where is your rebel friends? But overall, so it's just, it's insanity that, and that's a lot of my problem with a lot of Republicans more so than like overall conservatives, because there's, different types of conservatives, but Republicans overall, they're so super pro-war and shit like that. And it's like, especially when it comes to the American, exceptionalism bullshit that they buy into. Please find a way to justify this. Please find a way to justify this.
This is Americans, CIA soldiers, ground troops, who were executing children, shooting children in the head to create this sense of terror that if you one day, this is what happens if you go to a religious school that could one day feed people into the ranks of the Taliban army. And that's pretty brutal. And that's all pretty emblematic.
That's terrorism.
Pretty representative of the conduct of Afghan military, Afghan special operations, U.S. special operations. Summary executions were so commonplace, especially by special operations, U.S. and CIA.
And I didn't know Mike was was a vet. I've seen him on like, obviously on Empire Files. But I've also, he went on Jimmy Dore with Abby. Like I've seen him on a couple. I didn't know he was a veteran. I never really looked into his, because Abby's kind of like the face of Empire Files. So I've only known of Abby's work and shit like that. And I found out about her through Rogan, honestly. When I used to watch Rogan religiously. But yeah, I didn't know he was a vet. So it's dope to hear these veterans coming out. There's another guy. It's like his name is like Derek something, I think. I'm gonna be reacting to a couple of videos from him. I'm drawing. I don't want to say his name because I'm gonna butcher his name if I try to remember it. But Aaron Mate just had a Gray Zone video with him and another veteran about the situation in Afghanistan. Man, Gray Zone is doing amazing fucking work, man. Gray Zone is doing amazing work. Max is finally coming out too, talking about the vaccinations. He's been alluding to it in like different videos, but I heard he came out and full on was talking about the vaccinations and lockdowns and shit like that. So I need to I'm probably going to subscribe to Rockfin soon. I don't know who I'm going to subscribe to yet, but because I need to we need to be paying attention to this vaccine stuff as well. That's something that I'm going to be talking about on the show more so soon. I'm doing my research and learning more about it because I haven't honestly for real I haven't been paying attention to the vaccine stuff like prior, like I am now, but prior, because I was like, I just knew I wasn't getting it personally. Like whatever you wanted to do, I didn't give a fuck. But now it's like the more information that's coming out and the more they're censoring and hide, but that's a whole nother conversation. But basically, I didn't know Mike was a vet. So, and it's good to hear vets come out talking about these things. I have a tendency to talk off topic about shit. But yeah, but let's get back into the video.
And others. So the idea that the occupying military force that is carrying out over the last 20 years these type of actions can be some sort of force that can protect people is just false. Afghanistan
bullshit
can come forward,
propaganda.
Can move towards progress, just like so many other countries that are plagued with.
You're no different. Like right now, Marianne Williamson does not sound any different than Liz Cheney or fucking Meghan McCain or Bill Kristol. She was like saying she agreed with Bill Kristol on Twitter, and then she's wondering why people are calling her out on Twitter. She does this shit all the time. She got she responded back to me saying I didn't like. She was talking about how horrible Biden was, and I was like, Marianne, you voted for this. Now she wasn't one of the people running around being like shitting on people, being excited to vote for for Biden. She was one of those people that thought Trump was the second coming of Hitler and all that bullshit. But at the end of the day, you voted for him. This is why I love Chris Hedges. Like even Chris Hedges even believes in some of the second coming of Hitler things about Trump. Not fully, but he believes he talks about it sometimes. But he says straight up, I don't, and I actually think I have a video reaction to this too that's gonna be dropping this week. But he was like, I couldn't, I couldn't betray my, my students I teach in prison that Biden put most of, he said more than half of them wouldn't be in there if it wasn't for Biden. I couldn't portray the people I know overseas in the Middle East, that suffer from the wars that Joe Biden has advocated for and waged. So he didn't vote for him. And at the end of the day, voting doesn't matter. I know a lot of people are triggered by that. It doesn't fucking matter because, as Jimmy Dore says, there's, as of right now, there's no way for you to vote against the military industrial complex, Goldman Sachs, or Wall Street. There's no way for you to vote against that, at least right now. And I don't think there will be in the immediate future. It's going to take direct action that Fee talks about on Convo Couch. So.
Backwardness of just the impact of U.S. imperialism on the countries, they can't begin to move forward. They can't begin to progress until they solve that main contradiction, which is the contradiction with imperialism and occupying foreign army.
Yeah, they can't sit down in a room when the occupying power wants them constantly fighting each other so they can run out the back door with all the money and resources. That can't happen.
So any forces in Afghanistan, women's activists, organizations, so forth, like none of that will be able to get momentum or steam or push Afghanistan in the direction that it needs to go socially if there's a war in the country between an occupying imperialist power, multiple ones, and an insurgent force that's fighting it that gets pretty popular fighting it because most people don't like the foreign occupying troops. So, of course, we want to see social progress in Afghanistan, but that is a chapter that has to start with the elimination of an occupying imperialist force that becomes, when that exists, it sucks up everything. It becomes the main problem in the country. And I think now that that's gone, I think there opens up entirely new space.
Now that's where time is going to tell, because we don't know, are there still CIA? I would say I'm still CIA on the ground, and the alphabet boys out there. So time's going to tell. As of right now, from what I've seen and what Pepe has been talking about, they're starting to more align with China and Russia. So it's going to take time to see how the Taliban is going to govern, whether their decree, their not decrees, but their talk of inclusion and not and governing in a way that's fair to everybody and fair to how everybody's been living in the country fairly recently and shit like that. It's going to take time to see that, to see what's actually going. But at the end of the day, it's not our fucking business. It's not. And that's what Mike just basically said here. You can't have, the progression. You can't expect these countries to progress, in any way when they're being occupied by a foreign force. It's not going to fucking happen. And I feel like China is the perfect example of that. China is an example of a country that was heavily colonialized, and then afterwards were, interfered with by the outside power, not necessarily, colonized at the time, but the outside forces of those strong foreign powers had tentacles within their country, and they had their communist revolution and forced them out. And you saw their development now to this day, to where they're literally the economic powerhouse of the fucking world. Now, you may not agree with everything they do, but that's not up to you. But I would say China now is better than China 56, 100 years ago. And I would say that's because of, communism and socialism and their hybrid economy, their, socialism with Chinese characteristics. I would personally say that. But obviously, China is better today than it was 100 years ago. And that's because they've, effectively found a way to push back on the imperialist forces and force them out of their country.
For there to be social progress. And I don't want to, and the last thing I'll say is,
Marianne Williamson is arguing in favor of American exceptionalism. That's what she's arguing in favor of right now.
I don't want to paint any kind of rosy picture of the Taliban or make any optimistic predictions about the kind of government that they're going to impose on the country. But I will say that there was just one of the recent statements by the Taliban was saying, we want to create a unity government. We're not going to, and even said specifically, we believe in the right of women to get an education and so forth. And so they seem to be kind of trying to play, they want to have some kind of PR around
And that's the coaching from China and Russia that they're talking about. And it's not to kowtow to the to the Western powers, but it's to present themselves as, a legit, governing body to the fucking world. And that's what they're doing right now. Now, it's like I said, it's going to take time to see if they're going to actually follow through on what they're saying. But again, like I said, it's going to take time to see that. And even when it takes time, if we don't like what they're doing, that doesn't mean we should go back in and invade because women. Like, Jesus Christ, man.
On the fact that we're not what everyone says we are. We're not going to do things that are objectionable. We're going to be
They're literally writing articles right now talking about, the Taliban is sitting on, $1 trillion worth of minerals that the world deserves. We want your fucking shit. Oh my God, why can't we have your shit? It's ours. We need it for our electric cars. Oh my God, why can't we have our army come in there and brutalize your people so we can take your resources for our fucking electric vehicles? Don't tell Elon Musk they got all that lithium there, man. Don't tell him that shit. That motherfucker going to stage a fucking jihad to free all the women in that place. He's going to stage a liberal jihad. Or a libertarian jihad, I'm sorry. Elon Musk, who lives on the government dole, is a libertarian. I forgot about that.
Legitimate government of a sovereign country on the world stage. So I don't want to give that too much credence or believability. I mean, we'll have to see, but that's also the kind of thing you don't see in the, the dire projections. Not only that, but also the fact that the impact on women by the U.S. occupation.
So everything Mike just said there was 100% facts. We're not there to help women. We're not there to fucking help anybody. We're there to steal their resources and let them fight amongst each other and run out the back door with everything. And the Taliban made that hard for them. And the Taliban, and the reason why they made it hard for them is because people were tired of the fighting. That's one of the things that he talked about on our Breakthrough News. I'd recommend watching that clip. I might link it down below, but he was talking about how, one of the things people aren't talking about is the fact that, the Afghan, the military was tired of fighting their own people. Same thing with the Taliban. They were tired of fighting their own people. And they both sides wanted the imperialist forces out. Really, the only person that wanted the imperialist forces there was the fucking government and a fucking corrupt president who fled the country with like $200 million of our tax money. So, and I'm not trying to harp on the tax part, because I feel like that's what a lot of people are focusing on is like our tax money, which is a big factor because that shit, that money could be used for shit, the shit for us here. But the reason why I'm an anti-imperialist is not because of the money we're spending there. It's because of just the morality of the situation. We should not be over there mass murdering people and interfering in people's elections on behalf of our fucking corporations. That is bullshit. And that, that leads to the, the overall hatred and vitriol that is created amongst, the people themselves and towards us. And this is, this is the type of things that make people hate America. This is the type of things that make people crazy and turn into terrorists because they were invaded by terrorists. So they decided to fight terrorism with terrorism. And some of them are just straight up CIA assets. Like I heard a lot of people in the new Taliban government were former CIA assets that were fighting on behalf of the CIA against the Soviets. So, like I said, time will tell to see what the Taliban is going to be doing and the direction Afghanistan is going to be going. And I'm going to be talking about, China's influence and Russia's influence, and coaching them, getting them on the world stage and everything. So I'm going to be covering that in the Pepe Escobar Gray Zone video. So yeah, just look out for that. With that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and close the video out there. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Emphasis on all that. And yeah, thanks for tuning in.